past couple of weeks, excluding last week, I have been talking you guys to death about mass incarceration, and I think I've been doing a terrible job. I think I neglected to put the human interest at the center of it all, because when you put human interest at the center of a problem, and people start thinking, shoot, if that was me, would I like that to happen to me? I think it changes how people's perception of mass incarceration works. So, basically, why is mass incarceration important to you? I'm probably gonna have to throw all those papers around. And I should probably get someone who can illustrate better than I can for this video the next time I decide to do a video like this. Why? The big why. And I'm going to give you 3 good solid reasons. Number 1. You don't have to commit a crime to find yourself in jail during this mass incarceration era. There are plenty of people who ends up in prison because of due process is taking so long that you end up waiting in jail for a court date. In fact, come on. Today is going to be just a straight up illustration day, you guys. Roll with me, I'm leaving the tripod. This illustration could suck. Probably does suck, right? This illustration sucks. Alright, fine. No more illustrations. No illustrations. But you get the point. Because there's so many people being packed through the line on petty crimes that you could have such a small amount of cocaine or weed or however they're like just packing in these jailhouses. We'll get to the second reason soon, but they're packing in these jailhouses. And because for some reason you get pulled over for something petty, it could be like you look like someone who committed a crime X miles away from where they decided to pick you up and they're arresting you. Or it could be something as trivial as parking tickets that you forgot to pay and you get hauled in because of that. Or it could be, let's see, what other minor crap could you get pulled in for when you talk about, I think the most trivial is probably like traffic violations that you just, either forgot to pay or you just don't have the money to pay for them now. You just get caught up into something. So I'll just use that analogy since a lot of people can just easily just fall into that quite easily. So you get pulled over, but because of that long line and you're in due process and you don't have the money to afford an attorney or to afford bail, you could just be stuck in that long line just waiting to get in, to see a judge, to even pick a date for you to actually have the prosecutor defend their charges against you. And that means you end up in jail waiting that whole time. A lot of the times what's told to African Americans is there's such this heavy presumption that they're guilty before they are found guilty that they're like, all the time that you're serving now in jail waiting for your date to come up, and hence during the trial, if that ever even happens, which you should see, like 90% of things don't even go to an actual court date. That's how bad mass incarceration is right now. A lot of things are just deals. But while you're waiting, all this time that you're in jail can be added to or subtracted from whatever sentence that you're gonna get. That's how like presumptuous the court is when it comes to just having people sit in jail, not yet actually accused or actually convicted of committing a crime are. So you can fall into that case where you're just too broke to afford an attorney and afford bail, and then you're stuck. You're literally stuck in jail. So that should be number one reason why mass incarceration should be a huge thing that you look into, because you can just accidentally find yourself in a due process situation, and because the lines are so freaking long for you to actually get a court date, you're stuck in freaking jail waiting for your court date. Let's talk about reason number 2 after I charge this goddamn camera. I think I'm on reason number 2. Alright, reason number 2. Since my illustrations completely suck, I'm going to leave it out for this number 2 reason, just because I can't draw or anything. That's not one of my talents. Even though I do love doing stick cartoons, you guys. Stick around. Maybe later there'll be like a blurb at the end of this thing where I do one. But number 2, on to like serious things about why the hell this thing is so jacked up. Alright, so we talked a little bit about how you can be too poor, and because of this situation where we have this too many people actually being incarcerated, that we don't have a system that can actually handle how many people are being arrested per day, that the legal system can't get enough people through. And so sometimes you can be stuck at the end of a long line, and because essentially you're too poor, you can just be stuck. And I think a really good illustration is that I think a lot of times when you say you can be stuck, like waiting in this process line, our rational mind puts together that we can be stuck, a day or two, or we watch movies and we see how people get stuck in jail for a weekend or something before they can see their judge or whatever to kind of get things kind of situated. But there are times where people have been stuck in prison for years just waiting for a court date because of this line. There are states like New York, like New Orleans, like Florida, everywhere where you can literally just be stuck in this goddamn process of just trying to get a court date, and during that time, because you're too broke, you can be in jail for years. Not days, not a weekend, not even months. And that affects you dramatically. Not alone talking about your treatment in prison, your treatment by guard mates, by prisoners who probably might deserve to be there, the rules and constructs while in prison that you might be forced to follow, which might make you do negative things that are averse to your personality to survive in that environment for that amount of time, is crazy. And you'll literally be sitting in prison thinking, I won't be here for long, this will all get sorted out, blah blah blah, and your ass is stuck there like you're actual criminal, which is just, it is beyond terrible. But a good case of that is, I think it's Kalief Browder. I have his name in the description box. He was literally stuck in prison for 3 years waiting for a court date to prove his innocence, and then the charges were dropped against him. But you losing those 3 years, work, family, relationships, all gone to hell at this point. And you, in the eyes of people, when you're in prison for that long, even if it's for a couple of months and then you get out, it's hard to convince the general population, especially the population around you, that you are actually in prison for no other reason beyond you couldn't afford an attorney or you couldn't afford a bail. You know, it gives this, you automatically leave with a stigma of your ass was in jail, you're a criminal of some sort, you're a felon of some sort, and you're none of those things of any sort. You weren't proven guilty of anything. And so that is the big number one. Number two is, as far as self-interest, I think number two is a little bit off, but it does work if you think about it in the constructs of either you once were a teen or you could have a child or a kid or a brother or a nephew of age. So issue number two is minimums, when you talk about mass incarceration and how we are in this mass incarceration stage and why it's so messed up. Minimums are dumb a lot of the times because it requires you, no matter what the situation is surrounding why you're being brought up on charges, if you meet whatever it is, you're gone for a minimum amount of time. And sometimes these minimums can be quite harsh. Like, it could be 5 years, 10 years, 25 years. The minimums do range, but look, in your state, you have minimums. And because of minimums, you can arguably agree that a teen in this situation that's viewing drugs in this stupid media-focused version where they don't show you the drastic effect that drugs have on you. I know they try those commercials with the Say No, and it shows like these horrible, like, cancer-ridden people, but that doesn't necessarily work all the time, because when you're a teen, you just really don't see yourself getting old. You know, it's a thing that's going to happen, but I'm young now, okay? So, like, connecting those two it's a very hard thing to do. But nonetheless, you know, you have this drugs. I wish I could do my illustrations. I feel like I would be so much done with this number two already. But anyways, you have these minimums, and so you're a dumb teen, and you end up being like, oh, let me try this illegal substance. Or your friends are really pestering you to try this illegal substance. Or they know you're a goody two-shoes and you're not going to try the situation, but they can't house this illegal situation at their home because their mom is like on 10. And so you somehow get caught into carrying some illegal substance, and you're a teen. So your judgment, I'm not going to say it's the strongest necessarily. I think you have very strong constructs of gray or black and white. It's just the gray that you kind of get stuck in between, where your indecisiveness of gray areas, as far as this is clearly a no situation. You should not accept drugs from anyone. You should not accept to carry. You should not be peer pressured into carrying any drugs for anyone, or holding or housing drugs for anyone, or using drugs, period. But in your teen years, that is a construct that you can get caught into. And because of minimums, if you get pulled over during this time where you decided to make a bad decision, which in your teen years, believe me, you're going to make some pretty bad decisions sometime. And you'll come back to yourself as an adult and be like, what the hell was I thinking? But you get caught in that situation, and you can get caught in a minimum situation where you can be in prison for 5 years, or 10 years, or 25 years for a dumb mistake. But at that age, should you really be in jail for 5 or 10 or 25 years for a really, really dumb mistake? But because of minimums, they could be caught up into situations where it's 5 or 10 years. And how does this feed into this whole mass incarceration problem? Well, the jails are jam-packed with people who might have done petty criminal things, and they're in there for 5 or 10 years. And so we're filling up all of these beds because these people are not leaving. And then just say we actually have someone who shot someone, or someone who physically abused someone, and we're trying to put them in jail. because the jailhouses are so full with like all these petty things. You know, we have to build more jails and get more space, and then we have the privatization of these jailhouses, and so then we start building these like jailhouses to like keep fitting and fitting and fitting and fitting and fitting more people. And I think reason 2 is people make dumb mistakes that are sometimes not warranted to serve 5 or 10 or 25 years in prison, which I think we can all kind of relate to. Having, if you're an adult at this point, I'm pretty sure no one has lived a perfect life, you guys. As far as a teen, we've all made dumb mistakes. Probably some of our dumb mistakes were not things that are currently legal or illegal choices. But we've all made dumb mistakes just in general. Let's just get that out there. And the fact that maybe your dumb decision was revolving around drugs, giving you a 10-year sentence in prison, I think that is why number 2, your personal interests, should be, why the hell are these so high minimums for something that could really actually be a dumb mistake? Now, having minimums for things like reoccurring situations, things that are not like their first time, that makes a little bit more moral sense versus your first time doing something dumb or actually being caught with the ramifications of being dumb is dumb as far as spending 5 or 10 or 25 years. And I think that is a topic. Number 3. Number 3 for mass incarceration. And this is a big thing too, especially when you combine reasons 1 and reasons 2 why you're in prison. And it brings you to number 3 is when you get out of prison. When you get out of prison, you are legally allowed to be discriminated against. Now, you're not allowed to apply for FAFSA, which gives you things like the Pell Grant to continue your education. You're not allowed to live in housing like Section 8 or someone who has an apartment complex, because if you live there and there's an inspection of any sort, you can be quote-unquote evicted. Basically, you know what? This video is getting too long. But number 3 is a very valid reason. What I will do for reason 3 is I will say, you guys, watch a movie if you're, I'm going to say 17 and up, because I think that's the right rating. Like, if something's rated M, I think it's like 17. You have to be 17. If you're 17 and older watching this video right now, I think you should probably watch a movie on Netflix called The Imperial Dream. I need to do like just a separate review on that. But it explains my reason 3 as far as just like why reason 3 is such a big issue when you talk about us just being okay with mass incarceration. The ending result of it, oops, didn't mean to shake my camera. The ending results of it. So watch movie Imperial Dreams, Netflix. We'll see y'all be Netflix and chilling. So I guess skip the chilling and just get the Netflixing on with Imperial Dreams on Netflix. I think it explains number 3 in a better cinematic way, since I have completely stopped with my illustrations at this point because they completely suck, right? Other than that, I guess we will talk about all of these things into the comments boxes below, as far as drop a comment on how you feel about all of what I just said, but no. Peace.